The 12th of May 2025. You're welcome back. About 2 years ago, I'd say it was. Up to that, I was getting letters from the department over the single farm payments, and they'd be telling me you have to cut this and you have to get rid of scrub land and all of this. And for up to about 2008, 19, I'd say, they didn't pass much heed. Once it wasn't official forestry, they allowed you to have a wee bit of scrubland and that, and pay you for it on your entitlements. And then I did a video, I think it was in the middle of the pandemic thing, saying that it didn't make much sense to be clearing all this kind of land. Now this is a meadow down along the river, and I reckon this was a lake during the Ice Age. An awful lot of rough land in Ireland. It's a river bank. It was a lake, and then the water cut its way out and left the river, and had the river. The river's still just here, by the way, but this roughish land stayed. It'd be hard to get that clear. The rushes are endemic in there, but still, the cattle love that in hot weather, and they'll always come there to calve. And I do leave a few trees. Now this stuff here is stuff that was taken out of the river. You see that by what we call the rivermen, the border works. And you see it there, I'm just turning a bit, there again. And they left a big pile there, and I had a mind to clean it out and level it. But then I made the point that it didn't make sense to be taking away all this kind of scrubby land like that, and that they were great for wildlife, and they were good for cattle. Cattle loved being down. They'll come down here in the heat. But anyway, I went into the place where they hold a bit of a seminar to tell you what to do last year, and I was going to have to concede that I'd have to give up a bit of my acreage for the grant situation. And there I discovered that they changed the rules, that now you can leave it in, and it's not subtracted, provided it's not forestry officially. That if you have a rough piece of ground there, or you have some trees, and I set a lot of trees over the years, and I tend to keep trees going. And you know about Ashback. Ashback is where the Irish government was so infatuated with Sitka spruce and didn't have any much diversity, and they put Culture, the forestry crowd, put in nothing, only Sitka spruce. And when they wanted ash trees to plant, they got them from the Netherlands, and the Netherlands had a disease. It's a pathogen called ash dieback, and it has come here. I see it here on trees. On my farm, I have at least 2 trees hit with it. So why don't they just grow their own ash? We have ash in this country for generations, and the UK is not affected at all. This will tell you the stupidity of the Irish government, and the fact that they will not do the SEA, the Strategic Environmental Assessment, as required by EU law. If they did, someone that knows about trees could have put in a submission and pointed out the danger of bringing in saplings from another country. So they bought them in the Netherlands, and Britain's not affected at all. So needless to say, you wouldn't expect anything else from a pig or a grunt. Anyway, now the situation is that you can leave this type of land and they'll give you a wee grant for it. It's 60, as I read it, you could have 7% of your land with this kind of land, this kind of thing, and I have that. Or you could have 10%, which it wouldn't take a lot of extra work to have 10%. And as I read it, it applies to the whole farm. You get 60 euros if you have 10%. It's a little less for 7%. You get 60 euros per hectare. A hectare is 2.4 acres. You get 60 euros per hectare of money, of a subsidy, just for leaving this here. Now, I'm not in the reps. Maybe someday I would, because I was away in a job for so long that I couldn't join any of those things. I was just too busy. So it just shows you. I wonder, had that video any effect on it? Would it? It hardly did. But definitely I made it saying, wouldn't it be common sense to leave a wee bit like this for the birds and the bees and the hares, and just let you go on with it, because the cattle do come in here. So Yeah, and then there's what they call a marl hole here, a depression, where there's marly clay, and it's in the middle of a really good field, a little area about the size of a smallish house with garden in an ordinary town or that, and it'll be bigger than that. It'll be maybe two of them in size, probably quarter of a football pitch. And so that's it. So they are allowing that now, which does make a good deal of sense. Of course, the problem with the birds here is the wind farms are chopping them up a certain amount. But small wee birds are able to manage around them. It's certain other birds are affected. And then the buzzard has come in here where there used to be a lot of hawks and that type of thing. And I think that's why he seems to be better able to avoid them than other species. But that's another issue. So in that case, I'm just making the point again to you folks. This is a tree here that fell during the storm, and it's here a lifetime, and it's ash. And look at that for a block of wood. I mean, in the winter time, you threw that in the stove, you'd have lovely heat. And I'd say we'll have no ash in years to come, due to the Irish government's blundering. But on the other hand, on the good point, I will be very careful to leave bits. I know myself, because I'm very wildlife orientated, of course. I know myself what suits the wildlife and what doesn't, and where they have their tracks and stuff like that. Of course, there's a culling policy for badgers. I had a herd test again, and I shouldn't be tested. I only was tested 8 months ago. I shouldn't be till November, but I had one anyway, because there's a good deal of TB, but they're killing the badgers. And I had badgers on my farm for years, and I never had TB. Only one outbreak in 40 years, I'd say. I had one cow. That can happen. But I don't know, I don't like them killing the badgers, but they have been doing it for years anyway. And still, a badger is a protected species. Unless it's in certain areas, I just can't see the logic in making a badger a protected species and giving you fining you for killing them, and then send a lad round to kill them. Seems a bit strange. Now, on the ecological side, I see an odd swallow. I seen a swallow the other day. They're very, very scarce. I remember long ago there'd be hundreds of swallows. To say there's all sorts of reasons. I think the fly life is not there. I don't know. I think it's not there. It's been cold enough weather. However, the wee birds are doing well. I'm just looking at a blue tit there, and there's a good lot of small birds nesting in. They're quiet enough here. Do you know a thing about small birds and most species? And swallows are a classic example. I think wildlife likes to be near people. I don't. There is an odd pigeon in the trees around here, but when I go out in the morning and look around me at the old house here, or I land on the scene, pigeons are flying out of every tree I go near, and I think that's because they like being near people. Definitely, the swallow is cohabitating with humans. It's not just the rafters. You go into an old house, an old farmhouse that's abandoned, and you won't find many of them. Unless there's people around, and if you have an old cattle shed that's away isolated, you won't find many. You won't find many swallows. But where the people are, they'll be there. And holes in the wall for wrens and the tits and them things, they all like to be near people. I wouldn't be at all surprised too if that's not creeping into the fox species as well. They're very, very prevalent in the cities all over the place. Anyway, enough said. I've made me little point. Generally speaking, if we had proper abeyance with the law and proper compliance, we'd have great policies. We'd have great policies. But this example shows you that they had been forcing farmers to get rid of good wildlife country, and they didn't allow him any. And if he had it, they started taking it off. I mean, I went and said to them, like, why are you taking that bit of ground there? Sure, the cattle can graze there, but it's a bit rough. It doesn't look right from the air, and it looks to me it's not proper grazing ground, and you'll have to take away that bit there and that. And now it's the reverse. Now they're paying you to keep it. I never ran me affairs that way. Why do you have to learn on the hoof? Meanwhile, there's another plane going over here, heading to Canada or America. They'll never stop. People are on to me and they're quoting underneath here about chemtrails, and they're blaming chemtrails. If they're putting, that'd mean they'd have to put chemicals in the jet fuel to burn in the jet engine, and that'd inhibit it. There's not many chemicals you can let in. One of the few things that doesn't block a jet engine is rain. You put water into it, you'll block it, but it will deal with a little rain. They're designed that way. But this thing about chemtrails, they're saying like it's all over the place. But I do know that at the time of 9/11, those 3 days there were no planes in the skies, and the temperature of the world dropped 3%. That was in the paper. So if the temperature dropped 3%, how do we know all this global warming isn't due to the airplanes flying? Then let them stop them. See, it's not cool enough. They'd lose votes on that. And they all love flying. You get what I'm saying? It was in the paper. I read it after 9/11 because we were on a flat flight path here from Dusseldorf, Schiphol, West Midlands, even Athens in Greece, and even Saudi Arabia, and they fly across here, and they fly out over the Atlantic and down north of New York and down into either Canada or Atlanta. Some of them goes to Atlanta, and some of them goes here to California. So the trails are there. But when they stopped after that attack on 9/11. And funny thing, I was in the Twin Towers on the 16th of August 2001. I was in the place, not to believe. But anyway, when they stopped for, I think it was 3 to 4 days, the temperature dropped. That was reported. Now 3 degrees is a lot, and they're singing and roaring about climate change. And you hear Mary Robinson on, oh, we have to keep climate temperature down to 1.5 degrees. Are they building in? The temperature from the airplanes? Has there any tests done on that? My own suspicion is that what's coming out of the aircrafts, because I know all about I could lecture on a jet engine, is water vapor, plus the normal carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and other emittance from combustion process. The burn a form of TVO, a fine TVO. And therefore, my own suspicion is there's no chemical in it at all because they'd affect everybody. I think the VIPs and the billionaires and the George Soros will want that and them living on the planet. So I don't know on that. I won't argue, but I'm not going to make much deals of it because it seems unbelievable to me that what did they put in it? Does anyone know the name of the chemical? No, I believe that those chemicals, that those emissions high up are acting as a sort of greenhouse a little. But I'm shocked to discover it's 3 degrees centigrade. That's centigrade. Now, I always deal in centigrade. So that's what they found at that time. And even if it's only 2 degrees, well, then the way to increase or decrease the temperature and combat global warming is stop the flying. Stop the flying. See how they get on with that. We'll see you back, folks. Just give you a minute to hear the birds. Not fly. Yeah, there's a wee bit of bird activity here. Not near what it is up at the main house. And I go back to that again. I think a lot of birds, a lot of wildlife like to be near people. What kind of bird is that? Does anyone know? We'll see you back anyway on 14 minutes. That's it. They have relaxed the situation where you can keep a bit of rough ground and enjoy your bit of wildlife and still not be penalised on your subsidy that you get for being such a good farmer. We'll see you back. Bye-bye. Thank you.